Good morning, and look at me running with my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Good morning. I am Kenny Polcari, your host of the party, and today is Tuesday, February 15, 2020. And what's going on this morning? Whoa, Vlad is pulling back on the Russian troops, and global markets are rallying. So what do we need to know to get the day started besides that, right? Because that seems to be the big news. They are in retreat. Right, European markets up better than 1.5%. U.S. futures are up screaming this morning, right? Dow futures are up 400, Nasdaq's up 300, S&Ps are up 60, all that kind of good stuff, right? As they rally on the back of this news. Oil piercing $95 a barrel, and 10-year treasuries are back above 2%. The producer price index is due out at 8:30. And what will it reveal about inflation? The estimates call for 9%, so let's just see. And what are we serving for dinner today? Well, I'm serving the classic Russian Reuben. Very appropriate. Okay, so good morning. Stocks continue to thrash around and move lower again yesterday as investors grappled with a tense global situation coupled with now two aggressive members of the Federal Reserve. Kansas City's Esther George, just the latest Fed member to reiterate her opinion on what needs to happen, joining her peer Jimmy Bullard from St. Louis. Esther George suggested that the Fed needs to begin to sell bonds from their $9 trillion portfolio now, which is really comical because the Fed is still buying bonds in the open market. All while Jimmy suggests that the Fed needs to front load any rate hike, raising rates a full percentage point by July 1st while ending the bond buying program immediately, which I guess makes some sense since Esther George is calling for selling the bonds in that same very portfolio. So on the one hand, we're buying them. On the one hand, we're selling them. So what are we really doing? Right? They keep stimulating, yet they're told to sell the bond. So it causes confusion, it causes chaos in the markets, right? For both investors and more importantly, for the algos, because the algos can't figure it all out, right? They hear this conflicting data and the algos go into a frenzy. By the end of the day, the Dow lost 172 points. The S&P gave back 17 points. The Nasdaq ended the day flat, which is really a win. And the Russell lost 10. The transport's completely bucking the trend, rising 120 points as names like Avis rose 7.5%. Norfolk Southern up 2%. Ryder Systems up nearly 2%. CSX Corp up 1.5%. UMP up 1.5%. The 10-year Treasury ended the day yielding 1.99%. And this morning it's yielding just over 2%. Oil, West Texas Intermediate ended the day at 95.50 as energy continues to surge. Natural gas in the States rose by 6.5%, while gas across Europe rose by 4.2%. Now recall, much of Europe gets their gas from Russia, which has to travel through Ukraine to get to the continent. Kabish? Anyway, talk of more diplomatic efforts continue to make the headlines as Vlad positions his troops to surround three sides of the Ukrainian border. Joey reminding him that if he moves on Ukraine, the sanctions by the NATO nations will be harsh and swift. Nord Stream 2 will not become operational, which will only send energy prices even higher for Europe, causing global inflation to surge higher, which will then put more pressure on global central banks to raise rates to combat what? Rising inflation. As discussed, Europe is not so keen on punishing Vlad because of their dependence on Russian energy and what it will do to the energy markets across the region. And listen, do not expect China to join in the NATO punishment, primarily because they're not a NATO nation, but also because any sanctions imposed on Russia will only embolden Xi to come to his aid, which will then make Vlad have to come to Xi's aid when he goes and tries to take back Taiwan, as we've been talking about. I think that's the Black Swan event setting itself up, right? And this is setting the markets up for a potentially volatile semiconductor supply chain issue, right? Think, Taiwan being the semiconductor manufacturing capital of the world. It is an unprecedented time, and the geopolitical risks to the markets are real. But again, that doesn't mean, jump out the window and light your hair on fire. It just means understand the risks when you're investing your money. Talk to your manager, talk to your advisor. This morning, U.S. futures are up and up strongly. Why? Because news of this new diplomatic efforts are hitting the airways and Russian troops are in retreat for now. Look, I said it yesterday. I said it the day before. I think all the noise around Russia, Ukraine is just that. It's just noise. And yes, Vlad has positioned troops around the border, But in the end, I think that Europe is going to make a deal concerning European stability and Russian influence across the region. Ukraine will remain outside of NATO, and Vlad will be able to take that as a win. The U.S. will fall in line with Europe, and the whole situation will settle down. At 7 o'clock this morning, Dow futures are up and up strongly, up 450 points. S&P's up 60. Nasdaq's up nearly 300. The Russell's adding 30. And considering the weakness of late, any perceived good news concerning Russia-Ukraine will be met with buyers looking for deals on stocks that have gotten unnecessarily clobbered. If the mood remains positive, then look for tech and high-growth sexy names that have a great day. Remember, the Nasdaq's off nearly 13% from the start of the year, with individual names off even more. So traders will be looking for bargains, but that's today. And once this geopolitical drama cools down, the focus is going to return to the global economic inflationary data, which really isn't that good, right? Because inflation is hot around the world, and that's going to put the focus back on central banks and what they'll do in terms of rates and the speed at which they must raise rates to tamp down inflation. In any event, the road ahead remains bumpy. That's all I'm saying. So keep your eyes open. It is not smooth sailing, and nor do I think it will be for a while. Now, speaking of economic data, today brings us the all-important PPI number, right? Producer Price Index at 830. Estimates are calling for it to show an increase of 9% year over year, which is down from last month's 9.8. So they're going to spin it as a positive when, in fact, it's just smoke and mirrors. 9% inflation is still 7% above what the Fed is targeting. And prices at the pump and prices in the grocery store remain at 40-year highs with no end in sight. But I think the Russian retreat will trump any economic news today, unless, of course, it has a 10 handle, which I don't see how it's going to do that. While people expected that, I don't see that. In any event, it will bring the focus back to the U.S. economic situation, if just for today. That's if it has a 10 handle, which I don't think it's going to. So I think it's going to be all about Russia. European stocks are all higher by about 1.5% as trading kicks off. The news of the Russian retreat sending investors scrambling to buy beaten up names. Earnings continue to make headlines, but are not the drivers of the action. Later this morning, Europe will get Eurozone flash fourth quarter GDP, as well as the December employment and trade figures, expected to all just be in line, no surprises. Cryptos are getting a boost from the Russian retreat, right? Because they've been under pressure as well. Bitcoin is up 4%, trading at 44,000, and Ethereum is up 6.5%, trading at just over 3,000. The S&P closed last night at 44.01 after trading as low as 43.64. Now, we remain below the key long-term trend line at 44.50, and that leaves us ready to retest the January 24th lows of 42.22-ish. Now, today's good news is going to send stocks higher, for sure. But I remain in the camp that this is temporary and that once the focus returns to the Fed and future Fed policy and interest rates and balance sheet reduction and all that stuff, that we're going to need to shake the branches a bit more and retest those January lows, right? I think those will hold. If you're a long-only investor, then today's going to be a good day. If you play from both sides, your shorts are going to take a hit, but your longs are going to offset them, right? So you're okay, right? You're hedged. Now, remember, it's always about sticking to the plan. I'm happy to discuss it. Give me a call because I'm happy to talk about it. Anyway, what are we doing for dinner tonight? Well, considering all the Russian news, yesterday I gave you Ukrainian borscht. Today I'm giving you the classic Reuben with Russian dressing, right? And these sandwiches are really great. And considering all the chatter about Vlad and the Russians, why not serve up a Reuben with Russian dressing? Just because, why not? Okay, so for this you need butter, you need rye bread, you need deli sliced corned beef, get it from the deli because it's always better. Swiss cheese, you need sauerkraut, and you need the Russian dressing, right? Now, some people will use Thousand Island, but Thousand Island is not Russian, so try to go out and get the Russian dressing. Now you want to use a nice griddle, put it on the stove, you want to heat it up a bit. You want to butter one side of each slice of the rye. Then on the opposite side, you want to spread plenty of Russian dressing. Then you want to layer a medium slice of Swiss cheese, not too thick, but not really thin. Then you're going to add the sliced corned beef. Now put some sauerkraut on top of that. Then put another slice of Swiss cheese and then top it with the other slice of bread, which has the butter on it, right? Now, just make sure the Russian dressing goes inside the sandwich, not outside the sandwich. Now, you're going to place this on that griddle pan that you have, right? Get a piece of wax paper, put it on top of the sandwich, and then put one of those griddle weights, or take a Take a teapot, put some water in it. Just not too heavy because you don't want to smush the sandwich, but you want to put enough pressure on the sandwich so that it's tight against the grill, right? Because you want it nice to grill. After about 3 or 4 minutes, check for doneness. Flip the sandwich over and repeat the grilling process. Once both sides are golden brown and nice and toasty, and the Swiss cheese is all melty and gooey, and the Russian dressing is oozing from the sandwich, you know it's done. Take it. Slice it in half. You can slice it at a diagonal because it looks pretty, right? You can cut it straight, but if you slice it at a diagonal and you present it on the plate and then you serve it with Cape Cod chips, nothing like Cape Cod potato chips. Oh my God, delicious. Anyway, listen, it's going to be a great day today. It's going to be an interesting day when we get the CPI, we get the inflation report, we see what Russia does, we see what the troops do, we see how the markets react, right? All this noise that they created to create chaos to try to divert the attention away from Joey and inflation and some failed policies, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's all good. In any event, I'm taking the rest of the week off. A couple of issues, not a big deal. And I'll see you on Monday. But until then, take good care.